Hey, it's Rod B. Thanks for coming back for part 4 of my first electric guitar build. This part's supposed to be about sanding and prepping for paint, but there's a couple things I need to do to the body before I get there. And the first thing I want to do is, if you can see, the thickness of the body behind the neck. Well, I want to take that down. I measured another guitar, and it's about 5/8 of an inch from the neck down, so I want to sand this down at kind of an angle. And I don't like the neck plate in the back. I'm going to fill these holes up with dowel rods, sand it down, and I'm going to redo the neck because I don't like that. I want to do something different there. And let me see, and I want to make sure that the pickups are in correctly, and I want to mock it up and measure the distance from the nut to the bridge to make sure I got a good distance before I do anything else, because I don't want to prime it, paint it, and all that good stuff, put it together and realize, oh crap, I needed to do this, and go back. So we're going to do that first. So let me set everything up and we'll be right back. Okay, I got everything mocked up, bridge on, neck is on. I put my pickups in just to see everything it fits right. And I'm going to measure the scale length to make sure that everything's right. We're at 25.5 center bridge, so I did good on that for the first time. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put the high E and the low E string on it and tighten them up and make sure that the neck is straight with the string. Okay, I put a couple of strings on. They're not the proper strings for the E, but I just wanted to make sure everything was straight. And so far everything looks pretty good. I got the distance in between the string and the fretboard is kind of high, but that's no big deal because I still got to put a 2-degree shim under that and kick it up a little bit. And okay, now that I got everything set up, mocked up, I'm going to have to tweak the neck just a little bit, but I'll do that later. You see I marked on the back here, and I marked on the side right here. That's the angle I want to sand this down in on both sides, down to 5/8 of an inch. So I want that 5/8 of an inch, and when I get that done, I'm going to round it over, and that way when you're coming down the neck you won't hit that big square piece. So let me set up my sander and we'll sand that down. Okay, I'm going to do this with a sander because I don't want to cut it, because I don't want to cut too much off. With the sander I can control how far I go in there, and I won't cut too much of it off. So let's sand it and see how this goes. Alright, I got that rounded off real good right there. Now what I'll do is I'll take and I'll round this part off, and it should look pretty good when I get the neck on it. Let's round it off. That looks pretty good. Okay, there's a couple things I want to do before I start sanding on this thing. Is I want to fill these holes up that I drilled for the neck, because I don't like where they are. I want to go with 3 screws, but I'm going to inset them inside the wood. So I'm going to fill these up. Alright, I'll do a little bit of sanding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sand with a PDA sander 120 grit first. Then I'm going to go to about a 220 or 320 and sand it. Then I'm going to hand sand it with 400 and smooth it out, and we'll go from there. So let's get started with the 120. Now these right here are dried. I'm just going to sand them down smooth and we should be okay. Filled up all the little spots with putty on the back and some spots there, and we're going to go ahead now and sand them out smooth. Okay, I got to grab some 320 grit sheet, and I'll be right back. Actually, what I grabbed was an 80 grit piece of paper, and I cut off a piece of pool noodles. I'm going to put it around here because it's nice and round. and get up inside this pocket right here. This is where I routed it out. And we're gonna get that smooth, and then I'll hit it with 320. All right, now I can get some 320 and get that little corner there. Well, now I got my 320 on my sander. Get the front and the back, the sides, and keep on going. And it's gone. Alright, now what I'm going to do next before I go on to hand sanding with 400 is I'm going to hand sand the neck pocket, get these out. I'm going to take a stick with some paper and hand sand the neck pocket smooth. And the paint stir stick, I've got some 80 grit sandpaper wrapped around it. And I'm going to go inside this pocket and try to get it as smooth as I can. Alright, I think now what I want to do is I want to sand down these corners right here a little bit, because they're kind of sharp. I want to make them look a little better. Well, I got me some 320 on my paint stick, and I'm not a sculptor, so I'm going to try just to thicken this up a little bit. It's too thin, it's going to break, and just shape it up just a little bit and try to make it look a little better. Now that looks a whole lot better than it did before. Alright, now I've got to set my bridge back on it and mock everything back up, and then center my neck up and then drill the hole and set it, and then I can go on with the sanding. Okay, I went ahead and drilled new holes for the neck. You see I did this right here. Instead of going off 4, I just went 3 straight down. I just like that. I didn't like the 4 screws in the neck plate. I didn't want to do that, so I just drilled 3, and then I countersunk them down in. So what I need to do now is I'm going to mock this back up, my drill, and I'm just going to mark the neck. I'm not going to drill the hole. Alright, now I can take it back apart, drill the holes, and now what I'm going to use instead of wood screws are these wood insert nuts, because I really don't want wood screws going in and out, and this is an actual mechanical attachment, so I think this will work a whole lot better. Drill the holes. Alright, I got the holes drilled in there. Now what I'm going to do is I've got one already screwed onto this, on the nut, on a bolt, and I want to screw another one on there. And I'm going to use the nut to drive it down into the neck. But you want to use some wood glue. Number one, it's going to help lubricate it as it goes in, and it's also going to help it stick and stay in there once it dries. These are slotted on the top for a flathead screwdriver, but you got to be careful. They're brass and they'll break off real easy. See, I just broke it. So I got to try something different to get this down in there. Okay, just a little bitty piece broke off. What I do is I got a shorter nut bolt and tightened it all the way up and screwed it in there, but they're in there right there, so I'm going to bolt it on the neck and see how straight I got it. Alright, well that looks pretty nice right there. Okay, now we got it all ready for hand sanding. I'm going to go ahead and hand sand that off camera. There's no sense in you watching me hand sand, but I'll tell you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to start out with a 320. I'm going to go with the grain, and I'm going to hand sand the edges and the sides, and I'm going to go to a 400 and get it as smooth as possible, because the smoother you can get it, the better your paint job is going to be when it comes out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and when I'm done, I'll come back and we'll go from there. Alright, I got it all sanded down to 400 grit, super smooth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe it down with some denatured alcohol, because I'm going to put a grain filler on it. I want to get the dust off. And the reason I'm going to use denatured alcohol is because the alcohol evaporates really quick. It's not going to stay in the wood or anything like that. And if I use acetone or something, it's going to soak down in the wood, but this alcohol evaporates real quick. Okay, I got my grain filler. It's a clear grain filler, and they say to brush it on and brush it on against the grain. That pushes it down in any cracks or anything that may be in there. You take your squeegee going against the grain and scrape off any excess. That's going to push anything down into any cracks or grooves. Alright, I got that done. Now the instructions on the can says to let this dry for 45 minutes to an hour and then lightly sand it with 320 grit paper and level it back out, but I'm going to use 400 because that's what I sanded it to. Level it out, put another coat on it, and do the same thing again, and once I get that done, I'll flip it over and do the back side. Alright, it's been about an hour since I did the first coat. I'm going to take some 400 grit sandpaper on a sanding block, and I'm just going to lightly sand it. Alright, we're going to put another coat on it, let it dry, then we'll flip it over and do the back side. Alright, let that side dry, sand it again with a 400, flip it over and do the back side twice. Alright, the front and side's been drying for about 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and do the back side and let it be drying also, because it's dry enough for me to turn it over. Alright, we're going to let that dry, and then we can put the paint on it.